Let me ask you something before we begin. When was the last time you bit into an apple in the dead of winter, in January or February, with the snow piled up against the windows, and had it taste like it was picked fresh that very morning? Crisp, sweet, juicy enough to run down your wrist. For most folks nowadays, the honest answer is never. The apples you buy in the cold months have been sitting in a warehouse for the better part of a year, gassed and waxed and shipped halfway around the world. And by the time they reach your kitchen, they've gone soft and mealy, more disappointment than fruit. But it was not always this way, and among my people, it is still not this way. In our cellars, apples we picked in October are still firm and sweet in March. No refrigeration, no chemicals, no electricity of any kind. Just an old and patient method that our grandparents knew, and their grandparents before them, going back further than anyone can remember. And I want to give it to you today, the whole of it, so that you can do the same thing in your own home, whether you have a farm or nothing but a corner of a basement and the will to learn. Now, I'll be honest with you right at the start, because that is how I aim to do things here. There is no magic in this. I am not going to tell you some secret that the grocery companies have hidden from you or that the government has made illegal. What I am going to tell you is simply the truth about how a piece of fruit stays alive after it leaves the tree, and how you can give it what it needs to keep. Because that is the thing most people never understand. An apple, once picked, is not dead. It is still breathing. It is still alive in its own slow way, and everything about keeping it comes down to slowing that life down as gently as you can so that it does not rush toward rot. Get that one idea into your head and everything else follows. Fight that idea, and no trick in the world will save your harvest. So let me walk you through it, step by step, the way my father walked me through it when I was a boy. It begins, as most good things do, long before you think it does. It begins with the apple still on the tree, because the plain truth is that you cannot store a poor apple well no matter what you do, and you cannot store a summer apple at all. The soft, early apples, the ones that come ripe in August and taste so wonderful right off the branch, those are eating apples meant to be enjoyed within days. They will never keep. If you try to store them, they will turn to mush before the first hard frost. The apples that keep are the late ones, the stubborn ones, the varieties our grandparents planted precisely because they knew how to hang on through a long winter. In the old days, these were apples like the Winesap, the Baldwin, the Northern Spy, the Roxbury Russet, the Arkansas Black, thick-skinned, firm-fleshed, often a little tart, the kind of apple that a modern child might turn his nose up at fresh, but that becomes a treasure in February when nothing else is to be had. If you are planting for storage, plant those. And if you are buying at a farm stand to store, ask the grower which of his apples are keepers. He will know. A good orchardman always knows. The next thing, and I cannot say this strongly enough, is that the apple must be picked, not gathered. There is a world of difference between the two. An apple that has fallen to the ground has almost always bruised itself in the falling, and a bruise, even one you cannot see, is the beginning of the end. Under that bruised skin, the flesh has broken, and broken flesh invites rot the way an open cut invites infection. Those ground apples, the windfalls, are wonderful things, but they are for eating now, for cooking down into sauce and butter, for pressing into cider. They are not for the cellar. For the cellar you want apples picked by hand, gently, cradled in the palm, and lifted with a little twist, so the stem comes away clean with the fruit. Never yank an apple off. If the stem tears out, you have made a wound at the top of the apple, and that wound will let in rot just the same as a bruise. Keep the stem on. That little stem is a cork in a bottle, sealing the top of the fruit against the air, and handle every single one as though it were an egg. This is the part that tries a person's patience, and it is exactly the part that separates a cellar full of good apples in March from a cellar full of brown mush. My grandmother used to say that an apple remembers every rough hand that touched it, and she was right, though not in the way a child imagines. The apple does not hold a grudge, but the bruise you gave it by dropping it into the basket, by tossing it from hand to hand, by piling the picking bags too deep so the ones on the bottom were crushed under the weight of the ones on top, that bruise is real, and the apple will remember it by rotting from that very spot. So pick gently, carry gently. Set them down, do not drop them. If you must set a bushel basket down, set it down soft. Every jolt is a bruise you cannot see yet, but will surely find come winter. Once you have your apples picked, the sorting begins, and here is where you must become hard-hearted for the good of the whole. You go through every apple one at a time and you look at it and you feel it and you set aside any that is bruised, cut, soft, spotted, or has a broken skin of any kind, any apple with a wormhole, any apple that a bird has pecked, any apple that is not perfect and whole and firm. Those imperfect ones are not garbage, mind you. They are your eating apples for right now, your cooking apples, your cider apples. Use them first and use them fast. But they do not go into storage, not one of them, and I will tell you exactly why in a moment. Because the reason is the single most important thing I will say to you today. Only the perfect, unblemished, hand-picked, firm apples with their stems intact go into the cellar. Be ruthless in this sorting. One apple you let slide because it was only a little soft can cost you a whole crate. Here is the reason, and it is the heart of the whole matter. You have surely heard the old saying that one bad apple spoils the barrel. Folks say it about people, about how one troublemaker can ruin a whole group, and there is wisdom in that. But the saying did not begin as a lesson about people. It began as a plain fact about apples, a fact our grandparents knew from hard experience. A rotting apple gives off a gas. You cannot see it and you can barely smell it, but it rises off the fruit as it breaks down, and that gas has a peculiar power. It causes every other apple near it to ripen faster, to soften faster, and finally to rot faster. One rotten apple left in a crate will send out that gas and pull down the apples touching it, and then those pull down the ones touching them, and so on and on until you open your crate in January to find not one bad apple, but 40. That is why the sorting matters so much. That is why the perfect apples, and only the perfect apples, go into storage. And that is also why, all through the winter, you must go down to your cellar every week or two and look your apples over, and pull out any that has begun to turn, and carry it away before its gas can do its work on the rest. My father called this walking the barrels, and it was a chore he never once skipped, because he understood that a few minutes of looking each week saved the entire harvest. Now let me tell you about the wrapping, because this is the piece that most people have forgotten entirely, and it is what turns 2 or 3 months of keeping into 5 or 6. You take each apple and you wrap it, all by itself, in a sheet of paper. In the old days it was newspaper, and newspaper works perfectly well, though if you are particular about the ink touching the skin, you can use plain brown paper, or any clean paper you have. You wrap the apple loosely, so it is covered but not squeezed, and you set it in your crate. Then you wrap the next one and set it beside the first, not touching. Then the next, a whole crate, each apple in its own little paper coat, none of them touching its neighbor. It seems a fussy thing to do, and it takes a good while, and I have watched more than one young person sigh at the tedium of it. But understand what that paper is doing. It is doing 2 things at once. First, it is keeping each apple from touching the next, so that if one does begin to rot despite all your care, its gas is slowed and its softness cannot spread by direct contact to the apples around it. The paper quarantines each one. Second, the paper holds a little pocket of still, moist air around each apple, which keeps it from drying out and shriveling over the long months. That is a great deal of good work for something as humble as a sheet of yesterday's news. If wrapping every apple is more than you can manage, and I understand that it may be, there is an older way still, and that is to pack them in something dry and clean that keeps them apart. Our people have long used clean straw, or dry sawdust, or wood shavings, or even dry sand. You lay a bed of it in the bottom of a wooden box or crate, then a layer of apples not touching one another, then cover them over with more of the packing, then another layer of apples, and so on, like laying up stones in a wall with mortar between. The packing does the same work as the paper. It keeps the apples separate, and it holds the moisture steady. If you use straw, be sure it is clean and dry and has no mildew on it. For mildew is its own kind of rot, and you do not want to introduce it. Whichever way you choose, the principle never changes. Keep the apples apart, and keep the air around them cool and moist and still. And that brings us to the place itself, the cellar, which is the last great piece of the puzzle. An apple wants to be kept cold, but not frozen, and it wants to be moist but not wet, and it wants to be in the dark and left in peace. The old root cellars our grandparents dug were nearly perfect for this by their very nature, being dug down into the earth where the ground itself holds a steady coolness the whole year round, neither the blazing heat of summer nor the killing cold of the deep winter reaching down to disturb them. The ideal for apples is a temperature just above freezing, somewhere around 32 to 40 degrees, and a good high humidity so the fruit does not dry out, and darkness, and above all steadiness. It is not the cold alone that keeps the apple. It is the steadiness of the cold, the fact that it does not swing warm and then cold and then warm again, that lets the apple rest quietly through the winter without being roused. If you have no root cellar, do not despair. An unheated corner of a basement can serve, especially one against an outer wall where the earth's coolness comes through. An unheated garage or a cold shed can work, so long as you can keep the apples from actually freezing on the bitterest nights, for a hard freeze will burst the cells inside the apple and turn it to mush the moment it thaws. Some folks in the old days kept apples in a barrel or a box set into a pit dug in the ground and covered over with straw and earth, letting the ground itself be the cellar. Others used an unheated back room. The place matters less than the conditions: cold, moist, dark, and steady. Give the apple those four things, and it will keep for you. It is worth your knowing, too, that not every keeping apple keeps for the same length of time, and a wise person plans his cellar around this. Some of the good old varieties are what our grandparents called early keepers, meaning they will hold sound and sweet for perhaps 2 or 3 months and then begin to soften, and those you eat first through the late autumn and into the heart of winter. Others are the true long keepers, the stubborn ones that seem almost to improve with the months, growing sweeter and mellower as their tartness fades, and some of those will hold clear through until the first green things come up in the spring. A northern spy or an Arkansas black or a good russet is that sort. So if you have the chance to store more than one kind, keep them in separate boxes and mark each box with the kind and the date, and eat your way through the early keepers first, while the long keepers wait their turn in the back of the cellar. That way, you are not racing to eat everything before it turns, nor letting your best long keepers go by while you feast on the ones that will not last. It is a small thing, this planning, but it is the difference between having good apples for 4 months and having them for 6. There is one more small kindness you can do your apples, and it is this. When you want to eat some, do not carry the whole crate up into your warm kitchen at once, for the sudden warmth will rouse them all from their cold sleep and start them softening quickly, and what you do not eat in a few days will be lost. Instead, bring up only a small bowl at a time, as many as you will eat in 2 or 3 days, and leave the rest resting cold and quiet in the cellar. An apple brought up warm and then not eaten cannot be sent back down to keep as it was. So take only what you need, and let the great mass of the harvest stay undisturbed in the cold and dark until its turn comes. My mother kept a wooden bowl on the kitchen table that held just about 3 days' worth, and one of the children's chores was to fetch a fresh bowlful from the cellar when it ran low, and by that simple habit the family had crisp apples on the table every single day of the winter, without ever spoiling a one. I must give you 2 cautions here, plainly, because I would not have you learn them the hard way as some have. The first is this. Never ever store your apples alongside your potatoes, nor near your onions, nor near your winter squash if you can help it. I know it is tempting to put all the winter stores together in one cellar, and many a cellar has them all in the same room. But that same gas the apple gives off, the ripening gas, will cause your potatoes to sprout and go soft long before their time, and the strong smell of the onions can seep into the apples and taint their flavor so that your February apple tastes faintly of the onion bin. Keep them apart. Different corners, different shelves, or best of all, different rooms. The second caution is about a rotten apple, and it is a matter of your health, not just your harvest. When you walk your barrels and you find an apple that has gone soft and brown and moldy, throw it out, and do not be tempted to cut away the bad part and eat the rest. A rotting, moldy apple can grow a substance in it that is not good for a body to eat, and it can spread through the fruit further than the eye can see. A firm apple with a single small bruise you can trim and use, that is fine. But an apple that has truly gone to rotten mold, that one goes to the compost or the pigs, not to your plate. Better to lose the one apple than to make yourself ill over it. Let me draw it all together for you now, so you have it whole and can carry it out to your own kitchen this very autumn. Begin with the right apple, a late season keeper, firm and thick-skinned, never a soft summer apple. Pick it by hand with the stem on, never gather it off the ground. Handle every one as gently as an egg, for the bruise you cannot see today is the rot you will find tomorrow. Sort without mercy, and put only the perfect, whole, unblemished apples into storage, saving all the rest to eat and cook and press right away. Wrap each apple in paper, or pack them in clean straw or sawdust or sand so that no apple touches its neighbor. Set them in a place that is cold but never freezing, moist but never wet, dark, and above all steady, a root cellar being best but any cold corner serving in a pinch. Keep them away from your potatoes and onions. And then, all through the winter, walk your barrels every week or two, looking each apple over, and carry away any that has begun to turn before its rot can spread to the rest. Do these things, and you will do what my people have done for hundreds of years. You will reach into a crate in the deep cold of February, in a world gone white and quiet, and you will lift out an apple that is as firm and sweet and full of the memory of autumn sunshine as the day you picked it. And you will understand as you bite into it that the old ways were never poorer than the new. In many things they were richer, by far. There is something more here than just apples, if you will let an old man say so. There is a whole way of living wrapped up in this small skill, a way of paying attention, of being patient, of tending a thing carefully over a long time and being rewarded for it in a lean season. We have largely traded that way for the convenience of the store, where the apple is always there, gassed and shipped and waiting. And we have gained something in ease, but we have lost something too. We have lost the knowing, we have lost the doing. And I believe that in the doing of simple things like this, the storing of a harvest against the winter, a person finds a kind of quiet contentment that no store can sell. So try it this year, even if it is only a single crate in a single cold corner. And come February, when you lift out that first sweet apple, I think you will know exactly what I mean. If this is the kind of old and useful wisdom you have been hungry for, the kind that makes you a little more capable and a little more self-reliant and connects you back to the good sense of the ones who came before us, then stay here with me. There is a great deal more where this came from, and I aim to bring it back to you, one piece at a time. Subscribe, and we will keep remembering the old ways together, because some of the most precious things we ever knew are the simple ones we let ourselves forget. And the keeping of a good apple through a long winter is surely one of them.